We should have some music here in a second. Okay, it's just going to sit there and spin. Here we go. Good morning. Welcome to the David Stembaugh Show. This morning we're going to be looking at the short epistle of 3 John. It's all of 14 verses long. The purpose of this epistle was to commend Gaius for his hospitality and to encourage him in his Christian life. The author is the Apostle John, and this letter was written to Gaius, who was a prominent Christian in one of the churches known to John, and to all Christians. It was written about AD 90 from Ephesus. Church leaders traveled from town to town helping to establish new congregations. They depended on the hospitality of fellow believers. Gaius was one who welcomed these leaders into his home, and the key verse is verse 5. Beloved, you do faithfully whatever you do for the brethren and for strangers. And the people we're going to be seeing in this epistle are, of course, John, Gaius, Diotrephes, and Demetrius. A special invitation, or with a surprise knock, company arrives, and with them comes the promise of soiled floors, extra laundry, dirty dishes, altered schedules, personal expense, and inconvenience. From sharing a meal to providing a bed, hospitality cost in time, energy, and money. but how we treat others reflects our true values. What is really important to us? Do we see people as objects or inconveniences, or as unique creations of a loving God? And which is more important to God, a person or a carpet? Perhaps the most effective way to demonstrate God's values and Christ's love to others is to invite and welcome guests into our homes. For Gaius, hospitality was a habit, and his reputation for friendship and generosity, especially to traveling teachers and missionaries, had spread. To affirm and thank Gaius for his Christian lifestyle and to encourage him in his faith, John wrote this personal note. John's format for this letter centers around three men: Gaius, the example of one who follows Christ and loves others; Diotrephes, the self-proclaimed church leader who does not reflect God's values; and Demetrius, who also follows the truth. John encourages Gaius to practice hospitality, continue to walk in truth, and do what is right. Although this is a personal letter, we can look over the shoulder of Gaius and apply its lessons to our lives. As we read 3 John, with which man do you identify? Are you Gaius, generously giving to others, a Demetrius, loving the truth, or Diotrephes, looking out for yourself and your things, determined to reflect Christ's values in your relationships, opening your home, and touching others with his love? Again, John wrote to commend Gaius, who was taking care of traveling teachers and missionaries, and to warn against people like Diotrephes, who was proud and refused to listen to spiritual leaders and authority. If we are to live in the truth of the gospel, we must look for ways to support pastors, Christian workers, and missionaries today. All Christians should work together to support God's work both at home and around the world. John wrote to encourage those who were kind to others. Genuine hospitality for traveling Christian workers was needed then, and it is still important today. Faithful Christian teachers and missionaries need our support. Whenever you can extend hospitality to others, it will make you a partner in their ministry. Diotrephes not only refused to offer hospitality, but also set himself up as a church boss. Pride disqualified him from being a real leader. Christian leaders must shun pride and its effects on them. Be careful not to misuse your position of leadership. Gaius and Demetrius were commended for their faithful work in the church. They were held up as examples of faithful, selfless servants. Do not take for granted Christian workers who serve faithfully. Be sure to encourage them so they won't grow weary of serving. And that brings us up to our text. I'm going to read all 14 verses, then we'll go back and look at each verse individually or in groups. This is 3 John, picking up in verse 1. The elder, to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. For I rejoice greatly when brethren came and testified of the truth that is in you, just as you walk in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. Beloved, you do faithfully whatever you do for the brethren and for strangers who have borne a witness of your love before the church. If you send them forward on their journey in a manner worthy of God, you will do well, because they went forth for his name's sake, taking nothing from the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we may become fellow workers for the truth. I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to have the preeminence among them, does not receive us. Therefore, if I come, I will call to mind his deeds which he does, prating against us with malicious words. And not content with that, he himself does not receive the brethren, and forbids those who wish to, putting them out of the church. Beloved, do not imitate what is evil, but what is good. He who does good is of God, but he who does evil has not seen God. Demetrius has a good testimony from all, and from the truth itself, and we also bear witness, and you know that our testimony is true. I had many things to write, but I do not wish to write you with pen and ink, but I hope to see you shortly, and we shall speak face to face. Peace to you. Our friends greet you. Greet the friends by name. Let's go back to verse 1. The elder, to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth. This letter gives us an important glimpse into the life of the early church. 3 John, addressed to Gaius, is about the need for showing hospitality to traveling preachers and other believers. It also warns against a would-be church dictator. The elder John was one of Jesus' 12 disciples and the writer of the Gospel of John, 3 letters, and the book of Revelation. We have no further information about Gaius, but he is someone whom John loved dearly. Perhaps Gaius had shared his home and hospitality with John at some time during John's travels. If so, John would have appreciated his actions, because traveling preachers depend on expressions of hospitality to survive. That brings us up to verse 2. Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. John was concerned for Gaius' physical and spiritual well-being. This was the opposite of the popular heresy that taught the separation of spirit and matter and despised the physical side of life. Today, many people still fall into this way of thinking. This non-Christian attitude logically leads to one of 2 responses: neglect of the body and physical health, or indulgence of the body's sinful desires. God is concerned for both your body and your soul. As a responsible Christian, you should neither neglect nor indulge yourself, but care for your physical needs and discipline your body so that you are at your best for God's service. We now come to verse 4. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. John wrote about my children because as a result of his preaching, he was the spiritual father of many, including Gaius. And now we come to verse 5. Beloved, you do faithfully whatever you do for the brethren and for strangers. In the church's early days, traveling prophets, evangelists, and leaders, that is the brethren, were helped on their way by people like Gaius, who housed and fed them. Hospitality is a lost art in many churches today. We would do well to invite more people to meals. Fellow church members, young people, traveling missionaries, those in need, visitors. This is an active and much appreciated way to show your love. In fact, it is probably more important today because our individualistic, self-centered society, there are many lonely people who wonder if anyone cares whether they live or die. If you find such a lonely person, show him or her that you do care. That brings us to verse 7. Because they went forth for his name's sake, taking nothing from the Gentiles. The traveling missionaries neither asked for nor accepted anything from non-believers because they didn't want anyone questioning their motives for preaching. God's true preachers do not preach to make money, but to express their love for God. It is the church's responsibility to care for Christian workers. This should never be left to non-believers. Now we come to verse 8. We therefore ought to receive such, that we may become fellow workers for the truth. When you help someone who is spreading the gospel, you are in a very real way a partner in the ministry. This is the other side of the principle in 2 John verse 10. Not everyone should go to the mission field. Those who work for Christ at home are vital to the ministry of those who go and who need support. We can support missionaries by praying for them and by giving them our money, hospitality, and time. Now we come to verse 9. I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to have the preeminence among them, does not receive us. I'm going to go ahead and throw verse 10 here with this. Therefore, if I come, I will call to mind his deeds which he does, prating against us with malicious words, and not content with that, he himself does not receive the brethren, and forbids those who wish to, putting them out of the church. This letter to which John refers was neither to 1 or 2 John, but another letter that no longer exists. All we know about Diotrephes is that he wanted to control the church. John denounced his refusal to have anything to do with other spiritual leaders, his slander of the leaders, his bad example in refusing to welcome any gospel teachers, and his attempt to excommunicate those who opposed his leadership. Sins such as pride, jealousy, and slander are still present in the church, and when a leader makes a habit of encouraging sin and discouraging right actions, he must be stopped. If no one speaks up, great harm can come to the church. We must confront sin in the church. If we try to avoid it, it will continue to grow. A true Christian leader is a servant, not an autocrat. Now we come to verse 12. Demetrius has a good testimony from all and from the truth itself, and we also bear witness, and you know that our testimony is true. We know nothing about Demetrius except that he may have carried this letter from John to Gaius. The book of Acts mentions an Ephesus silversmith named Demetrius who opposed Paul. That's in Acts 19:24. But this is probably another man in contrast to the corrupt Diotrephes. Demetrius had a high regard for truth. John personified truth as a witness to Demetrius' character and teaching. In other words, if truth could speak, it would speak on Demetrius' behalf. When Demetrius arrived, Gaius certainly opened his home to him. Now we come to verse 14. But I hope to see you shortly, and we shall speak face to face. Peace to you. Our friends greet you. Greet the friends by name. Whereas 2 John emphasized the need to refuse hospitality to false teachers, 3 John urges continued hospitality to those who teach the truth. Hospitality is a strong sign of support for people and their work. It means giving them of your resources so their stay will be comfortable and their work and travel easier. Actively look for creative ways to show hospitality to God's workers. It may be in the form of a letter of encouragement, a gift, financial support, an open home, or prayer. Stay safe, be blessed, and stay in the Word.
Say that thou King of heaven, my victory won. May